The story of China and money is not only about currency or banks. It is about how a civilization with long memory learned to treat finance as an instrument of national strength. Over several decades, China built a system where money is guided by strategy rather than left entirely to chance. This approach reshaped trade, industry, technology, and global influence. To understand the power of money in China, one must look at history, institutions, culture, and long-term goals working together. In traditional Chinese thought, wealth was never isolated from order and stability. Imperial administrations used grain stores, taxes, and state monopolies to control prices and prevent chaos. This created a belief that money must serve harmony rather than individual excess. When modern China began rebuilding its economy, this old instinct returned in a new form. Finance became a tool of coordination and direction rather than a battlefield of purely private actors. After the founding of the modern state, China faced scarcity and isolation. Money had little meaning without production. The first priority was control. Banks were centralized and credit was allocated according to plans. This system lacked efficiency, but it created discipline. Savings were mobilized and inflation was restrained. Over time, leaders realized that money could do more than merely support factories. It could guide behavior, reward priorities, and shape the future. The turning point came with reform and opening. Markets were introduced gradually and cautiously. Prices began to reflect supply and demand, but the state did not retreat. Instead, it learned to stand behind the curtain. Major banks remained under public control. Interest rates and credit flows were adjusted to encourage growth in chosen sectors. This hybrid system created a unique financial landscape where market signals and policy intentions coexist. One of the core strengths of China money finance lies in savings. Households traditionally value thrift. Cultural norms encourage preparing for uncertainty and supporting family across generations. This produced a vast pool of domestic savings. Banks could rely on stable deposits. The state could fund investment without depending heavily on foreign capital. This independence reduced vulnerability to external shocks. These savings were transformed into infrastructure at a scale rarely seen. Roads, railways, ports, and power grids emerged rapidly. Money flowed into concrete, steel, and machinery. Critics often called this excessive, yet the results changed productivity permanently. Logistics improved, regional inequality narrowed, and private enterprise gained a foundation. Finance here acted as an engine that pushed the real economy forward. Another pillar is state-directed credit. Large banks channel funds towards strategic priorities such as manufacturing, technology, energy, and urban development. Returns are not measured only in short-term profit. They are measured in capacity, learning, and control of supply chains. This approach sometimes creates inefficiencies, but it also builds resilience. When global demand shifts, China can adjust quickly because the financial system is aligned with national goals. The currency plays a special role. The value of the renminbi has been managed carefully. Stability is favored over dramatic appreciation. This supports exporters and maintains employment. At the same time, gradual international use of the currency is encouraged. Trade settlement agreements, currency swaps, and offshore markets expand its reach. The goal is not sudden dominance but steady acceptance. Foreign exchange reserves are another expression of money power. By accumulating large reserves, China gained security. These reserves act as insurance against crises. They also provide leverage in global finance. Investment choices influence bond markets and exchange rates abroad. Yet the management of reserves is cautious. Preservation of value comes before aggressive return. China also uses finance as a diplomatic instrument. Development banks fund projects across Asia, Africa, and beyond. Loans are tied to infrastructure, ports, energy, and transport. These projects create physical links and economic ties. Money becomes a bridge. Critics argue about risks and debt burdens, but from the Chinese perspective, this is long-term partnership building. Influence grows not through force but through financing, roads, power, and trade. Technology has become a new frontier of financial power. Digital payments transformed daily life. Mobile platforms allow instant transactions even in remote areas. This increased efficiency, reduced costs, and generated data. Data then feeds credit assessment and consumption analysis. The financial system becomes smarter and more inclusive. Small businesses gain access to capital previously unavailable. At the same time, the state watches closely. Regulation adapts to keep control. Financial technology is encouraged, but boundaries are clear. Systemic risk is treated seriously. When speculative excess appears, authorities intervene. This reinforces the principle that finance serves stability. Freedom exists but within a framework. The rise of capital markets adds another layer. Stock exchanges provide funding and price discovery. Yet they are not the sole center of finance. Banks still dominate. This reduces volatility but limits certain forms of innovation. The balance reflects priorities. Growth must be steady, employment must be protected, and social trust must remain intact. Real estate illustrates both power and challenge. Property became a major store of wealth. Finance fueled construction and urbanization. Cities expanded and living standards rose. However, excess leverage created risks. Policymakers responded with tightening measures. This shows the adaptive nature of the system. Money can accelerate development, but it can also threaten stability if unchecked. Internationally, China money finance interacts with existing systems. Participation in global institutions brings responsibility and scrutiny. Calls for transparency and reform are met gradually. China prefers evolution over disruption. By integrating step by step, it reduces friction while increasing voice. Education and human capital also connect to finance. Investment in universities' research and skills supports innovation. Funding flows to science and engineering. The payoff is not immediate profit but long-term capability. This again reflects a patient view of money. Critics often compare this system to liberal financial models. They point to misallocation and hidden risks. Supporters highlight resilience and rapid progress. The truth lies in complexity. China does not claim perfection. It experiments, adjusts, and learns. Mistakes occur, but the capacity to mobilize resources remains strong. Another dimension is social stability. Finance is used to support employment, small enterprise, and rural development. Microcredit and targeted lending address inequality. While gaps remain, the intent is clear. Money should not concentrate excessively in speculation. It should circulate through production and services. The concept of sovereignty is central. Control over key financial levers is seen as essential. This includes payment systems, data flows, and major institutions. Independence ensures policy space. During global crises, this autonomy allows swift response. Liquidity can be injected, stimulus can be directed, and panic can be contained. Looking ahead, the power of money in China will face tests. Aging population, environmental constraints, and global competition require adaptation. Finance must support green transformation, healthcare, and innovation. New instruments will emerge. Carbon markets, sustainable bonds, and digital currency experiments already point the way. The digital currency initiative deserves attention. By issuing a state-backed digital form of money, authorities gain efficiency and oversight. Payments become faster and traceable. Policy transmission improves. International implications are significant. Cross-border settlement could change. Yet adoption will be gradual and cautious. Trust remains the foundation. Citizens must believe that money retains value and serves society. This trust is built through stability, growth, and consistent policy. When disruptions occur, communication and action matter. The state uses its financial power to reassure and stabilize. In conclusion, the power of money finance in China is not about domination through wealth alone. It is about alignment. Savings policy, banks, technology, and strategy move together. Money becomes an extension of governance. This model differs from others, but it reflects history, culture, and ambition. Its influence will continue to shape the global economy in subtle and profound ways.